What is up? And welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. Hope you had a fantastic holiday. We are here and ready for the college football national championship game. I can't talk about it myself, so I am joined by the captain from the Gamecocks football captain's log, Petey Inabinett. Petey, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. All right, 14-0 Washington Huskies taking on the 14-0 Michigan Wolverines. Monday, 7:30 on ESPN. Michigan favored by 4.5. How surprised are you that Washington's here?
If I go back to my preconceptions before the year started, I expected them to be good. I did not expect them to be undefeated, and especially not to win the Pac-12 this year. I thought that would have gone to Oregon, and although Oregon gave it a shot, they came up short. But Washington's been like one of those teams that's always going to be like right on the cusp of being great, but usually fall short. And that just didn't happen this year somehow.
I know. Probably my greatest claim to fame is that in the season preview I did with Brett, we both picked Washington as the Pac-12 team with the best chance to make the college football playoff. We won't talk about some of my other predictions. We'll just stick with that one. But they've had a hell of a season, and the story with them is offense, and more offense.
Yeah.
So I know they got Michael Penix Jr., who was the Heisman candidate, and they got probably the best receiving core in the nation and the Joe Moore Award winner, whatever that means, as far as the best offensive line. I know you watched a little bit of their tape and you've watched them over the course of season 2. How good is Penix and those wide receivers?
I don't. It's hard for me to say that he shouldn't have. Penix shouldn't have been the Heisman winner. I think the only reason why Jaylen got it was because he means more to LSU than Penix does to Washington. So Penix, especially, I rewatched the championship, their playoff game, and he has got a most incredibly strong arm, incredibly accurate. He finds ways to just make plays on the run that I haven't really seen anybody do before. And the only person I can really think of in comparison is Kaepernick. But even like better than Kaepernick. He gets these balls into really tight spaces on the run. And that ball is moving. And I'm surprised these receivers are catching the ball. It's coming out so fast.
That's a great comp because I remember we watched a lot of Kaepernick at Nevada. We watched him take down Boise State.
At Johnson's Pub, which no longer exists.
Rest in peace to Johnson's Pub. But yeah, I kind of thought Penix was going to win the Heisman. I wonder how much of that is playing for an SEC team too. And
probably, yeah,
taking a little bit more serious
bias going on there. Obviously, Jaylen's a fantastic player, and I think is their leading rusher and passer. More yards than anyone ever, I think. But without him, LSU just would have been garbage, probably.
Yeah.
So that's the case. The Heisman is still a quarterback award, and that obviously hasn't changed,
which is stupid.
Yeah.
But it is, and yeah, Jaylen Daniels obviously deserving as well. But yeah, Penix, a hell of a season. Let me see. I got his stats right here. 4,600 yards passing, 67% completion percentage, 35 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 430 yards against Texas.
Yeah. Which I don't know how much stock I put into Texas's defense. I mean, they're obviously a good defense, but um, it's a Pac-12. I mean, a Big 12. Defense. They don't like to play a lot of defense, in the Big 12. Of course, not really the Pac-12 either. So
I
these are
think
always
that's
going to be high-powered offenses that you're going to be playing against.
I think that's the thing too, is I don't know who's good this year. Like
Yeah.
who's good. Also, the college football playoff was kind of funny to me because you've got Washington representing the Pac-12, which will be ending, and they will be joining the Big Ten. And then you also had Texas, who is leaving the Big 12 to join the SEC. So you had basically it was the two super conferences were represented in the Big Ten and the SEC in this college football playoff. And it was just, you think of Washington not as being a powerhouse like we talked about, but they were just in the college football playoff in 2016 under
That.
Chris Peterson, a former Boise State coach as well, with Jake Browning as their quarterback, and they lost to Bama there.
Yeah.
So you don't think of them as a,
if I remember correctly.
yeah. So you don't think of them as a powerhouse, but they have been here before.
Yeah.
They do have a split national championship in 1991. So
What? Who would that? Who was the other one?
I believe it was Colorado. Let me look it up.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that was around that time period. Colorado was really good.
and they kept, that's the one good thing. People complain about the playoff and everything, but at least we don't have to deal with that anymore
Yeah,
because you should just have an outright champion.
because that would have been pre BCS too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Miami, the Hurricanes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not putting a lot of stock in co-national champions in that one.
No. And the backup quarterback for that team, he was actually the starter, but got hurt. Mark Brunell. So
I haven't heard that name in a while.
yeah, I was reading through the roster and I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the wide receivers. They got Rome Odunze, 1,500 yards this year receiving. Jalen Polk, 1,100 yards, and Jalen McMillan, 500 yards in 6 games. He had 1,000 yards last year when he was healthy. I don't know who you take away out of those three or how you take away any of them.
And that's basically what I saw, watching their game the other day. You can't. They're all really good, and they're gonna find. They might not be like wide open, but they're gonna find a way to get open, and they're gonna have a margin of beating the defender. And Penix has got the accuracy to put it where only his guy's going to get to it. He had some close calls the other day, but that ball's coming in there so fast. There's no way a defender's going to be able to turn around and make that interception, or he might block it away or something. But it's the arm strength on him and accuracy is incredible. And plus he's got a great offensive line to work behind. So it's really. It might be one of the best offenses I've seen in a long time. But, Michigan's got one of the best defenses you've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Not Iowa great, but, they're pretty good.
I think that's kind of the story, is like in boxing, styles make fights. This is like two polar opposite teams. You've got the high-powered Washington offense versus the number one scoring defense in the nation in Michigan. And the question for me is, hopefully you have an answer and we can just end the episode now. Can Washington's defense do enough to stop Michigan's offense, Or can Michigan's defense do enough to slow down Washington's offense? And can Michigan's offense, like they're two polar opposites. I have not said this well at all, but it's been a long layoff.
Yeah.
That's not really my fault. But it's two complete opposites playing against each other. And me being offense minded, I want Washington to win so that I can be proven correct.
I mean, I want Washington to win too, just because I hate Michigan and I hate hardball. It, but and this was really hard. Like it's hard to put a finger on. You know, this team is clearly better, and but then you also have to say, like, traditionally, you always go with the great, like, defense travels. You know, they're the ones that every team in history has had a great defense that's won a championship. But Michigan almost lost the game to an Alabama team that really I don't think should have been in the playoffs at all.
They
And
didn't look
so,
very impressive. So this is my question for Michigan. Michigan's defense, the numbers are great. They don't really play anybody tough outside of the Big Ten.
yeah,
Is their defense just propped up by the fact that they're playing all these terrible Big Ten offenses? Because, like I said, the last couple big games we've seen Michigan play was against the Bama team that hasn't been that impressive this year. And they probably should have lost if I don't know
yeah.
what Bama was doing there at the end with the play calling, but they probably should have lost. And
Also with
then,
the special teams, like,
oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. And then last year against TCU, got into a shootout and lost in the college football playoff, I think 51-45. So is
yeah.
Michigan's defense really as good as the numbers say, or are they just beating up on the Big Ten?
I mean, you gotta. It's come. Big Ten is almost like the ACC. There's these really, top echelon teams, and then there's the bottom of the barrel, that just get shellacked every week. I mean, other than Ohio State, Penn State, who are they really playing that you can consider a top tier team, at least on a consistent basis? And then they played Iowa in the championship game, which Iowa's got the best defense in the world, and but they can't score also. It's not like who isn't going to shut them down
Yeah.
on offense. So yeah, I think it's mostly that they're beating up on terrible Big Ten teams. They have won, against the big, the big daddies of the Big 12 or the Big Ten, and then they barely beat an Alabama team that's on a down year. But Alabama's got, they've got an offensive line that has struggled all year. They've got Jalen, Milroe, who is just has become a really good quarterback, but you're gonna live and die by him.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I don't know how many sacks they gave up, or against Michigan that they just were not. And Michigan wasn't even like putting on blitzes or anything like that. They were just sending 4 or 5 guys, and they were getting to it. That will not be the case against Washington. So as far as it's really hard to tell you that one team is going to win this game because they're completely opposites of each other. Neither one of them have Washington doesn't have a terrible defense, and then Michigan doesn't have a terrible offense, so they're kind of middle of the road on those two aspects. I want to say Michigan wins this game only because they have a really good defense. but I could see it go. I could see it going the other way too.
It's tough, which is refreshing after the game we had last year with
Yeah.
TCU and Georgia. Uh, just some of the defensive stats for Michigan. I mentioned led the nation by allowing just 9.5 points a game. Again, they played in the Big Ten. So,
Yeah.
second in passing yards allowed per game, eighth in rushing yards allowed, second in turnover margin, ninth in interceptions, and they returned 4 picks for touchdowns. The defense, if you do believe in it, elite at all three levels. There's not really a hole on the defense. They also run the ball well with Blake Corum. He had 25 rushing touchdowns. I actually think it might come down to how well they run the ball and keep Penix off the field.
Yeah, it's gonna like if they can control the clock, and time of possession, then they're probably going to be in the best chance to win this game. Um, unless they continue to fuck up on special teams.
They were
And
just doing
yeah,
they,
it
they
was.
they look crazy on special teams in particular.
Yeah, yeah. I have no idea what they were doing, but that was just nuts. But and somehow they still pulled it out and won the game. Um, you know, I don't know if they have faced like an air raid offense before like this. I mean, they beat Ohio State and Penn State, but Penn State's not really throwing the ball a whole lot.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And Ohio State, I can't say that they're an elite passing team either. But I guess they're really well rested.
Yeah, because I know they did struggle, as did most teams, to contain Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State. And they seem to struggle against bigger, more physical receivers. Even last year with Quentin Johnson at TCU. And Washington's receivers do have some size. So I'm curious to see if they can handle that. But man, I just want to believe in a high-powered offense. That's all I want to believe in.
I mean, if there's ever a year to do that, this is it. And I think it's becoming more like we're seeing. It used to be, like I said, always defense first. That was what won championships. But it's become. You've seen over the years, it's becoming less and less that case, and becoming more. Especially now, everybody's throwing the ball for 500 yards a game. Seems like, but it's man, it seems like a coin toss. But do you know what the spread is on this?
4.5, Michigan's favored.
Mm.
So I guess with Michigan too, watching JJ McCarthy, their quarterback.
Yeah.
Not a lot is asked of him. If Washington just kind of sells out on the run and forces McCarthy to make plays, how confident are you in McCarthy to do that? Can he do just enough to win? Can he get Michigan to 30 points?
Oh, I don't know about 30. That unless they get into overtime. But man, so he's like a serviceable quarterback. He's not like elite. He's fine. He's good. He's not gonna give you he's not gonna be dynamic. But he's accurate enough. He doesn't have the arm strength of Penix, but as long as he doesn't make dumb throws, he probably has. They have a really. I mean, they're probably going to win. If they don't turn the ball over, I say Michigan probably wins this game.
Yeah,
and if they get into a shootout, Washington, it's going to be Washington because, geez, McCarthy's not keeping up with Penix.
No, I think that's. We'll figure it out pretty early. I think. If Michigan can slow them down, because I do think like if we're talking about teams getting into the 30s, then clearly that's a Washington game.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Michigan can keep up with that. I think the over-under was set at 56.5 the last time I checked, which with the spread, that would put it like right on the cusp of someone is going to have to score 30.
Yeah.
With that, I kind of like Washington because I just don't believe in McCarthy. And it's tough too because, like you mentioned, I don't know, as good as Penix is, I don't know how you shut him down other than to run the ball well and keep him off the field. But then they also have a good running game with Dylan Johnson at Washington, but he's hurt. And I know he was hurt at the end of the game, almost caused a catastrophe because it let the clock stop, and then Texas got the ball with some time left, and they almost blew it. So I think I'm still talking myself into Washington here. But how funny of a season has Michigan had? Because they opened it up with the Harbaugh suspension for the Hamburgers.
Yeah. So even if Michigan wins this game, there's going to be an asterisk next to that, championship. And
that would be funny. If Michigan's going to win a championship, it should be one with an asterisk.
Of course. Yeah. But that's
because then you got
Harbaugh's going to take, he likes to push the envelope, put in as far as thinking outside of what's legal.
Yes, because they started with the cheeseburgers and the hamburgers, and then they moved on to the Connor Stallions disguise on the sideline, which just so happens to coincide with their best seasons under Harbaugh.
Right. Yeah.
So that's funny if they do win.
Yeah, but
we were talking about split championships before. They got one with Nebraska in 97, I believe. Do you know the last time Michigan won an outright national championship? Because I think of them as a blue blood because that's how they tell us that for sure. They act like they are. And so I'm like, okay, must have been recent.
I'm betting it's like somewhere in like the 50s or the somewhere in like
1948.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can't believe we've let them talk about themselves like this, and it's been since 1948. That's insane.
Well, they had 20 years there where they were like really bad.
Yeah.
Brady Hoke and all those Charlie Wise, or not Charlie Wise.
They had Lloyd Carr, the end of Lloyd Carr, I think, ended poorly because they did get the split championship under him. I think it was his third season, but they just Rich Rod.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Look at him tearing it up down there in Jacksonville State.
Yeah. So, some more fun Michigan facts. What do I have? Nothing, because there's nothing fun about Michigan.
There is nothing fun about Michigan. I love to hate them. They're really annoying. But most Big Ten schools are.
Yeah, like this will be the last year we'll get to love Washington to do anything because they're going to the Big Ten, so they're just going to become boring.
Yeah.
You can just cut that passing total in half. I don't care what Kalen DeBoer thinks he can do as an offensive genius head coach. You immediately cut it in half by moving to the Big Ten. It's against the rules to throw the ball more than 30 times a game.
Yeah. You're also not allowed to have unless you're Michigan and Iowa, you're not allowed to have a great defense.
No. Yeah. It's very sad. So one last thing about these two teams, and then we'll get to like predictions, although we've been giving some predictions. So Washington, their last 5 games have all been one possession games.
Yeah.
In your mind, is that more of, okay, this is a team that knows how to win close games, or this is a team that's due for a fuck up? Because against
I
Texas,
always like to lean towards fuck up.
yeah, against Texas, it looked like that.
Yeah. And mostly because I'm a Gamecock fan. So when I see us winning a lot of close games, usually we're due for several fuck ups in a row.
That's true. That's what we do.
Yeah. But, I mean, Washington had what, 3 drives that ended in field goals?
Yeah.
That really should have, that game should have been not as close.
It felt like a blowout.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they're, man, I don't think they're going to fuck it up. I think they're okay. I think they're,
Okay.
maybe that's just me being optimistic, I guess, which
That's incredible. Mark it down.
against my nature, but
Yeah.
no, I think they'll figure it out this year. I'm not saying
they'll win. Huh? And then with Michigan, not really a lot of close games. So are they dominant or are they untested?
Ooh, I want to say a little bit of both. Definitely untested. They had it. I mean, they almost failed against Alabama, which Alabama
Not
is
a great team.
Not a great team. Man, I think they're untested, and they're getting a little bit lucky.
Yeah, which you have to be lucky to win.
Yeah.
So now your final prediction for the national championship game. What do you think happens?
I think it's almost a bit like a repeat of Washington and Texas. They'll probably slow down Washington, but Washington if they get into the 30s, they're gonna win this game. And I just don't have a lot of faith in that Michigan offense to be able to put up enough points. I don't.
It's tough.
It's really tough. So what I would like to say is I want to take Washington with the points.
Okay. So this is what I think. I think Michigan has shown against tougher non-conference opponents, they can get sucked into a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think we're going to see Washington put up 50 like TCU did last year. I don't think we're quite there.
Yeah.
But I do think with Washington's offensive line being so good, they've allowed 11 sacks this season, which doesn't seem real to me as a Gamecock fan. I don't think they can get pressure on Penix. He seems to get the ball out really quickly.
He does. He also is very he moves around in the pocket and really good at escaping, but also good at throwing on the run. I don't see them being able to contain him, but
so I think he has a game. And also, like, let's say they do get some pressure on him. I think between Penix and those receivers, they're good enough to where they could keep a running back or a tight end in to protect. They don't have to put out a bunch of guys out to catch. I think that offense puts up more points than people are really thinking. And then defensively, I think Washington goes all in on stopping the run in Corum, and they force McCarthy to beat him. Man, I don't think McCarthy can beat him.
I don't. So I think the key to this is if Washington can have success early, get Michigan out of the having to play possession football and try and think, get them the mentality where they have to keep up. If that's the case, they got it. Washington gets this. But if Michigan comes in and shuts them down for a quarter and plays possession ball, it's going to be rough going for Washington. But they can, but they're one of those teams that can just explode out of nowhere. So it's going to be,
I think another concern I have with Michigan is they kind of feel like a team that's waiting to mess up.
Yeah.
Like they don't really believe like they're this good.
Yeah.
And I think like we saw that with the selection, the college football playoff selection, where they got Bama and everyone in the room was disappointed because they're expecting to lose. And then a lot of the celebration after they beat Bama looked more like relief and disbelief than like, no, we were supposed to win that game. I think that that's really what played a role in all the mistakes they made were mistakes that you make when you're scared and it makes you stupid. That's what it felt like. It felt like, oh shit, we're in it with Bama. Yeah. And so they're also not good in bowl games under Harbaugh. I think they're like 2-6 or something like that. They won their first one, lost 6 in a row, and then they just beat Bama for their second win ever under him. I've talked myself into it. Washington is going to win this game. Straight up.
I hope you're right. You talked me into it too. I'm gonna say Washington's gonna win this game too.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna and the good thing is if we're wrong, we just don't have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it until August.
Yeah, even then, whatever.
we might not address it.
Yeah. So well, let's look at like the season as a whole. What were some of the surprises for you? Speaking of being wrong, I was wrong about a couple of things.
Yeah. So I thought Southern Cal would be better.
Oh man,
I don't know what's going on over there, but yeah, I thought they'd be a lot better. I thought they'd be, really contending for maybe a playoff spot. But that just wasn't in the cards for them. They imagine this: they fired their DC.
Ever
thought about that?
I didn't know that was allowed.
Is that allowed? I didn't think you could do that, but yeah. And that's the one that comes off the top of my head at the moment, as far as surprises.
I was really wrong about Missouri. I did not think. I thought they were like 7 or 8 win team. Yeah. And they were incredible. Jaylen Daniels, I did not see a Heisman season coming. I just didn't really believe in him. And he carried LSU like we talked about.
Yeah.
Incredible player. I was not wrong about Texas A&M. Hilarious program they have there. I think Mizzou and Jaylen Daniels were my two biggies there where I was just completely wrong.
Yeah. Another one for me is going to be Louisville. I cannot believe that they made it an ACC championship game. That was, especially if you watched any of their games, wow, they are pretty bad at offense. And they still won. I don't see that happening again next year though. They had a lot of single, one possession games that they won, and that's not going to happen again. So as far also FSU not making it to the playoff, being undefeated. Now I'll say they got it right, but I can't believe they did it.
So that was one of those things where it was both unfair and the correct decision.
Yeah.
Like I understand why you're upset. To me, in college basketball, there's a precedent for that where if you have a star player who's hurt, you're going to get a lower seed or might not make the tournament. So
Yeah.
that didn't, I was kind of confused as to why everyone was so shocked about that. Um, I guess not super confused because we all like to argue, but I couldn't believe either that they actually did it.
Yeah. It, I mean, they really just did not want a repeat of Georgia TCU.
No.
That's really what they didn't want. So I think there have been, for quite a few years in a row, there have been some blowout games in the playoffs, and they're trying to get away from that. Now, next year, we won't have to worry about that, I don't think. We'll still get blowout games, but we'll have 12 teams. So, the right team will get in. And I think it's pretty obvious that Georgia should have been in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, that was shocking to me. I get what they were doing. They were picking like from the conference champions and then out of the best conference champions of the Power Five from there. They really messed up by not putting, they should have dropped FSU as soon as Travis got hurt. They should have dropped them out of the playoff picture and set the expectation then. They didn't do that, so they set themselves up to get yelled at. But
yeah. But I mean, so I didn't see the reasoning for putting Alabama in when they almost lost to Auburn the week before their championship game, and they have looked pretty terrible on for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
They lost to Texas. So in theory, they should have 2 losses, and somehow, by some miracle, they beat Georgia. And then Georgia just goes out and just demolishes FSU.
Yeah.
God, that's we're going to have another one of those controversies where obviously the best team didn't get in there. And I think if Georgia's in the playoffs, they win it all.
Yeah, because I mean they were stacked, and you got to win your games,
Right?
But they came out in that bowl game with something to prove. In FSU, you see the people talking about like, well, they had a bunch of opt-outs and transfers. Really, that to me feels like a kind of a cop-out from those players where it's like, we can just, if we never actually play, then we can always say we were wronged until eternity.
You think there's also the fear of actually having to play Georgia?
Yes.
Like, why would we want to put our bodies through this for no gain?
Because I think you can throw the game away and not worry about it if they lose by less than 60. But when you lose by 60, I feel pretty confident saying no one on your team was going to stop you from losing, even if you bring everyone back. Y'all lost by 60.
Yeah. I mean, they were undefeated, but they also played in the ACC.
That's another thing.
And they had close games in the ACC too.
That's another thing. Like, it's not like their resume before Jordan Travis got hurt was just perfect. Yeah. Like they looked bad in a couple of games too. They just happened to win them. Right. So I get your outrage and this, that, and the other, but it was the right decision. Like, it was unfair and also the right decision. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Get over it. Yeah. Also, they look terrible against Louisville. So
those were 2 bad teams that made it to the championship, ACC championship game. I don't know how we had that game actually happen, but it was just awful to watch.
It felt like a punishment.
Yeah. 2 bad quarterbacks just going at it. Man.
It was no good. So what else? The Heisman Trophy. Okay. Are you like me? When I was younger, this seemed to matter so much more.
It did. It used to.
Now, like you were saying, it's strictly a quarterback award. In my opinion, tell me if I'm right or wrong. If it's supposed to go to the best football player in the nation, to me, it should have gone to Marvin Harrison Jr. because, like, he was the reason that, like, they almost beat Michigan because of Marvin Harrison Jr. And I I watched Big Ten games because I was covering it for Franchise Tag UK, even though they're Big Ten games. And watching them, that dude was unstoppable. As good as Jaylen Daniels was, like again, like I said, you can't take it away from him because he had a great season. But it is just a quarterback award now. And so it's like, who cares?
Yeah. It's really become not even, are we considering who the best player is and is who is basically putting up the most points?
Yeah.
Or yards or whatever. And because honestly, like even for a long time, it's always been it's been an offensive reward. We've had what, one defensive player win it. I don't know how back. Yeah.
Woodson in 97.
Like I don't even know how, if we go back to Jadeveon Clowney, how was he not? I think he finished 6th.
And Ndamukong Suh should have won it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He almost beat Texas by himself.
Yeah, that dude was incredible.
Yeah. So it's not even fair to call it basically an MVP award. It's just best quarterback now. Or I will give them credit this year for giving it to the guy who meant the most to their team.
Yeah. It was like a most valuable player versus the best player on the best team.
Because we were going to like who was winning which quarterback was on the best team in the country, and they were winning, which one went undefeated. So that's, I don't even, in order for it to mean anything to us again, they've got to change that, make it more of an actual, who's the best player in country, defensive or offensively. And it can't just be only quarterbacks anymore. It's got to be more real. And it's who's the last receiver? Was it Devontae Smith?
Yep, Devontae Smith.
That's the last non-quarterback that I can remember.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the Heisman Trophy winners anymore because why?
Yeah.
What do we need to know for? It's not even a thing. But yeah, like until we got into, I probably cared about it until like maybe 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. Before,
yeah.
I mean, I used to name them all before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was like a fun thing to do and like talk about it throughout the season. They just released a 30 for 30 for it was the 97 one with Charles Woodson, where it was just kind of detailing that whole race. And it was always fun. Like you'd look week for week. I remember the Post and Courier had like a tracker each week where they would just kind of rank the top 5 candidates and you'd follow that. But now it just doesn't matter. Yeah. I didn't even watch I can't remember the last time I watched the ceremony.
Oh, I couldn't even tell you the last time I even looked it up.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's just like
it's I have like, so what I think where it kind of turned for me is Troy Smith, because I think it was pretty obvious that he was not the MVP of the league.
Who'd you have? Let me look up that year while you're explaining your reasoning.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what year that was. But he didn't make it into the NFL. Like he might have been drafted like in the 6th round or something like that.
Let's see. He was a late 5th round pick.
Yeah.
To the Ravens. Beat out Darren McFadden and Brady Quinn.
Ooh, that's stiff competition right there.
Yeah. Ugh. Another thing too is they took it away from Reggie Bush.
Yes.
For like
money
that these kids can find in their couch now. Like, let's be for real. So I don't know. And speaking of things that have changed and might make us sad, might not. We talked about the playoff expanding. I read it's supposed to go into January 20th next
Ooh.
year. What do you think about that? It seems a little far into the
Seems a bit ridiculous. I
yes.
mean, how long before it's just the NFL and we're playing 18 games
Let's
plus
just
playoff?
make them play year round. The team with
Right.
the less
Which
players who
honestly, I might like that, but
yeah, because
players not so much.
if you can keep your players alive, you have a chance.
That's right. Do you have 22 players at the end of the year to be able to put up a full front? But
Yeah. It's like war of attrition. Let's just do that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how you are able to. I think what it eventually ends up being is a players association for college. We've already
It's
had
got
it.
to be.
Like, we've already tried it a couple of times, but it got voted down. But I think that's eventually what's going to happen because you're going to have bargaining agreements between the NCAA and the players. But I mean, for college athletes, that's too. I mean, for football, that's too many. That's too many games. That's going too long too.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
You won't
messing
have
up my
any like
flow.
you won't have any like dual sport athletes anymore either.
No, no, no.
Um, like Bruce Ellington played for us and played football and the basketball team, but it's going to be. I think you've got to cut down the regular season if you're going to do that. Like
Yeah.
no
That's
more.
a
If you're
good
a Power Five conference, no playing like Furman or these Division two teams or not division. What do you call them? FCS teams.
sorry, Michigan. There goes your
Yeah,
non-conference schedule.
yeah, yeah. Then go to 10 or 11 games in a season. Isn't that what the FCS does? Only have 10 games.
I believe so, yeah. And then they go into the
Then,
playoffs. I think they end up with like 14 or 15 games if you make it all the way.
yeah,
Then you're
yeah.
good.
That seems that's realistic. Because otherwise we're playing for what 8 months.
Yeah, like this it's ridiculous that they asked them to play this long.
And then they're still
And
supposed to be student athletes.
the biggest joke of all jokes. And it's just so silly. And then I wonder what you're going to get. Like, we as a nation love football, but then you're running into the NFL playoffs. So I wonder how that's
Yeah.
going to affect things. I don't know. It's just
It'll affect
so
like TV deals and stuff because if you're going that far out, you're overlapping with NFL playoffs, which these what was it after the conference championship games and bowl season, like you started seeing playoff games on Thursday and stuff.
yeah.
So and on Saturday, so you're gonna have to rework that somehow. But I mean, obviously, they'll make the money anywhere they can get it. But
They certainly, that's exactly why we've got Washington as the last Pac-12 team ever.
Yeah.
Because there's more money to be made by having them play in the Big Ten, even though it makes no sense for Washington, their softball team, to travel midweek to play against Maryland softball team.
Right.
Because that's stupid. But
yeah,
at least the people who aren't playing the sport can get paid. That's what's important.
Well, I'd give so with the NIL stuff, it is more fair. Like these guys they don't have to go. They don't have to like save themselves for the NFL. They can make their money now. And not have to, worry about, just making it past that third year to go to the NFL and finally make their money. So that's the part of this I like, but I don't like all the, changing schools every year.
I think
that's a bit much.
I do think that you solve that by signing the players to contracts and
Right.
paying them directly. Seems
Right.
pretty
Just
easy. Everyone's like,
yeah.
how do we do this? Is there a model to pay athletes to play their sports? No.
Every other model there is.
Yes, it's so stupid how they pretend. And speaking of the transfers and things that have changed, how do you feel about bowl season now, especially since they have the transfer portal open in between the end of the season and the bowl games?
So that I don't like. Why do we need to have the transfer portal open in December? It doesn't make any sense. Why not just wait until January when the season's over? And also, and signing day too.
Yeah,
it's not even. I mean, I get that we want to, get these guys, maybe get them in for a spring semester or something like that. But shit, I mean, if they can, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to be, unless they're a huge recruit, they will probably not play the first year anyways. They can, and then signing day really doesn't matter now, especially because they can just transfer out before they even play a game.
Yeah. What do you think about my plan as NCAA commissioner to not allow coaching changes or transfers until after the national championship game?
I'm for it.
Okay. Well, it's settled.
Well, I mean, unless it's head coach. I mean, like head coaches and stuff like that. Yes, but if you're an OC or somebody like that, then you can. I don't care so much about that, but if you want to fire somebody, yeah, go for it. But
well, again, as Gamecock fans, we don't fire our coordinators. So, but yeah, head coaches, you can't take a head coaching job until after the national championship game.
Yeah.
But then the players can't transfer either, because I don't think it's fair for coaches to do things players can't do.
Right.
And that's an argument that people like to have. So everyone, we shut down. It's a freeze on all that until after the national championship game. Now, I don't know. People might still opt out of the bowl games, but at least you don't have to worry about tracking all that shit.
But it's just going to be, they can't go into the transfer portal, a month before the season's over. So
yes,
I would like to see us finish a actual season with the people we started with.
Yeah,
on each team, and then I don't care. I don't care if it's the next day.
Yeah,
fine,
go get out.
Yeah, or at least until your team is over.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense too. That's a fair compromise because it's just a lot, and I don't know. I think now I look at the bowl games that aren't the playoff ones, because most guys play in the playoff games. I look at them more as a preview for the next season versus an end of the current season. Yeah. Just because things are so different. So I'm like, okay, this is we could look like this next season. Here we go.
But you can't get that this year because you have no idea. You have no idea who's going to be on the team, or even who's going to and people are opting out, or coaches are changing. It's bowl games have never made any sense to me as far as any kind of indication where this team is going.
That's why we pull for a team that doesn't make bowls. Don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
We haven't had to do anything for a month and a half. It's been great.
I kind of forgot football even was going on until I was sitting in a bar in Bangor, Maine, and saw the last 4 minutes of Alabama and Michigan.
You're like, holy shit, this is still happening. Teams can play this far into the season.
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah. So I think we covered it all. Do you think we covered it all?
I don't see what else we can cover.
That's true. So, Petey, again, Morris Island Charters, you want to take a boat tour with him. I'm not asking if you want. I'm saying you want to take a boat tour with him. That information is going to be in the show notes. Again, be on the lookout for the Gamecocks football captain's log. He does a great job there. I will catch you next week. Man, I think that's it. Oh, yeah, that's it. All right, then. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.